Solutions. Talk Radio WRNR studios. It's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario and David Welch.
Thank you, Cliff. Good morning and welcome into the program. This segment of Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave is brought to you by the Berkeley County Health Department, offering public, clinical, and environmental services at 122 Waverly Court, Martinsburg. And yesterday they hosted a press conference. Health official Dr.TerrenceReidy talking about a hepatitis, wouldn't call it an outbreak, but a disturbing recurrence throughout the state and in Berkeley County, too. We're going to talk with him later on this morning on our program. Dave, good morning.
Good morning to you. And before we get into more serious stuff today, I want to get to the most important item of the day, which is my Snicker bars have reappeared on the studio desk here. And I just want to say our producer, Sherry Dieter Davis, she is the best, and she shows her love in so many, many ways. And one way is that when I came into the studio today, there's 5 glorious Snicker bars in my basket. I'll hold them up to the camera so you can see these Snicker bars. We're going to save those, I hope. Well, I might have to hide them. We're going to save those for Friday morning's political roundtable, in which these Snicker bars have various labels on them. They're different than the labels that we had on the last ones, but they're still pretty good. Space Cadet.
Yes.
Brat. Absurd.
Well, yeah.
Basic.
Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine some of the guys around the table being rewarded with those kinds of Snicker bars.
That's for the Friday roundtable, still a few days away here. Let's say good morning to our intern, Savant Hutter. Good morning, Savant.
Good morning.
Savant won't be here Thursday and Friday. She's off to her sister's wedding, Dave.
She's staring at my Snicker bars right now.
I do
Look at
want
her.
one.
She's like zeroing in on those Snicker bars because she was one of the culprits.
When you're hungry, you're hungry.
Yeah, it's true.
She's a college student. They use a lot of energy.
I might give you one.
And she works 2 jobs, too.
Yes,
Yes,
she does.
I
And
do.
she does both very well, I'm sure.
Indeed.
And she loves me more than you.
It's a big day. It's primary day in several states, including our border state of Maryland. We'll talk a bit more about that as the morning continues along. Yesterday when we left here, it appeared that everything was under control, Dave, and then the state seemed to spiral into, I wouldn't call it chaos, but certainly there was a lot of activity. And right now a special session has been called at noon. They'll meet today. The governor called it. And among other things they're dealing with is the Supreme Court. So we've invited in a couple of guests. Later this morning we'll talk with Delegate Paul Espinosa. Right now we want to bring in 63rd District Delegate Mike Folk and 55th District Delegate Isaac Sponaugle. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line today.
Good morning. How are you all this morning?
Great, thank you.
We're
Mike,
good. It's
good morning.
great to have you on, Isaac. I don't think we've had you on our show before, have we?
About a year ago.
Oh, did
I
we?
was on here about a year ago.
Okay,
I think,
gotcha.
Delegate Barrett had me appear. I think he was guest hosting that morning.
Oh, okay,
Indeed.
great.
Yeah. Mike, you're there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, very good. Thank you for both for being with us here. So the governor called a special session, and it appeared in the letter that I read that it opens up the possibility of impeachment for more than one justice. Right now, everyone's focused on Al Lafrey, but it appears that others may also be in, for lack of a better way of putting it, the impeachment crosshairs. Mike, can you elaborate a bit on what's going on here?
Well, I mean, basically what I'm, in the research of by staff and some of the Judiciary Committee and others, they've been reviewing the only documents that we really have, which are a lot of the legislative order documents that had on the big legislative audit done on the Supreme Court spending. And it appears that there are some other issues with pretty much every justice. And the question is, obviously, does each of the individual's actions potentially rise to being an impeachable offense?
Isaac, what would be an impeachable offense as we look at these justices?
I forget. There's I don't have the language in front of me, but certainly malfeasance, corruption, right on down the line. There's specific language. I believe the couch in and of itself would probably be enough, frankly, if you really wanted to hit it hard, the $32,000 couch. But with Lafrey in particular, he had a judicial they had an investigation on him. He's totally suspended right now and can't even serve on the court, suspended without pay. for various ethical violations. So that's his law license, everything's been suspended. And on top of that, now he's looking at, 22 or 24 counts of
22.
Federal crimes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been issued against him. So just clearly looking at it, objectively, any way you want to go at it, you certainly should bring an impeachment proceeding against him. That doesn't mean necessarily the members will vote to impeach him, but just on that, reading it, all you got to do is open up the newspaper. There's enough there to impeach him. Now, some of the others, there's rumors and speculation floating around out there that we're not aware of. So there's a lot of rumors under the dome. So it's been brought, and certainly we can look at each individual justice if we need to.
We hear the name of Menace Ketchum as another justice who's being looked at closely here, Mike Folk. Is that accurate?
Well, I would say if you had to put them in order, Menace would be number 2, and I think Isaac would agree with that because some of the spending that was uncovered in the legislative auditor's report, and a lot of it had to do with vehicle usage in the case of Menace Ketchum, and some of that was a result of literally the fleet audit that they did. They found, because they audited all the different fleets, and that's where they found that cars were being used for private use. Not even by the justice himself, but some family members. So that's one thing, and so Menace is probably number 2, and then I think Robin Davis is another one that they're going to look at some of the different spending. And I've had some conversations with the auditor about that to get the details behind it. The report says one thing, and what they uncovered during their, they have to, they can't be, they have fewer powers than we do in some respects. So I think that's why this whole process has got to be vetted out, and they're going to look at the whole court. And I don't think that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody might be impeached. Somebody might we might actually, what's the word? Isaac, help me out here. We could do
just
things
review
less
it.
the
impeachment process.
Mike, in the proclamation, I'm reading the one from the governor that called you into special session. It seems to me that the scope here is limited to matters, in the words on the proclamation, matters relating to the removal of one or more justices of the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia, including but not limiting to censure, impeachment, trial, conviction, and disqualification. And
so we could.
So you could have any of those options.
We could literally, impeach 2 and censure 3, for instance, as just an example. And I'm not presupposing that anything should be done. Like I said, that I'm pretty confident that obviously, and I'm sure Isaac is, that one is going to go one way or the other. Whether he does it voluntarily or whether he has to be removed, he's probably gone. But I think a better than 50-50 chance that 2 will probably go one way or the other. And if you look back at the history of what happened in '89, there's a lot of that going on down there, because this has only happened one other time. And so there were actually people censured in that impeachment proceeding, including a former governor and I think a sitting auditor at the time were censured. And so that can happen, and it's not a slow process. The impeachment of A. James Manchin happened during the regular session. The House work did, so they could do it concurrently with the regular session. And then the trial wasn't actually scheduled until about 2 months later, and it never went to trial because A. James Manchin finally felt the pressure and resigned.
Do any of the justices that might be discussed during this session, do they get to be represented at the in the legislature? Do they get to personally appear?
Yes, my understanding that's the case. Yeah, if they want to come before. Basically, the impeachment proceeding, and all we're talking about is removing an individual from office. That's it. There's no fine, no punishment, other than you're taking their office from them. The House would basically act like a grand jury. You're looking to see probable cause, whether there's any charges that can be brought. The Judiciary Committee, I believe, is how they're planning on doing it, is going to do pretty much all the work on the impeachment on the various judges. They will come back and make formal recommendations to the House, and then each member of the House can either vote to agree with whatever the Judiciary found or not. And then if they're formal charges, then they're sent over to the Senate, and then the Senate actually would put them on trial for those individual counts if there any are found. And I believe, if I recall, I think the Supreme Court the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court actually is the presiding judge over at the Senate when they go to put him on trial. Well, that's the way our Constitution's set up.
Delegates Isaac Sponaugle and Mike Folk are with us on the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line as we talk about the special session which convenes today in Charleston. And I believe, Isaac, you said at noon is when you will actually begin to gather and start to look at some of this information. Will there be somebody presenting evidence to you, or is this information that a House committee has been assigned to gather and will present?
House committee.
Judiciary Committee?
Yeah. Judiciary Committee.
And just want to add something to what Isaac said. He said all we can do is remove him from office. That's partially correct. One of the results, if you are removed by the Senate, is any pension you have, you lose, and also you can't run for office again.
And that's official, Mike? You lose your pension?
That's one of the main reasons that A. James Manchin resigned, because he had earned a pension, and number one, and number two, he didn't want to lose his chance to go run for office again, which he did, I think.
I understand the Speaker of the House, Tim Armstead, will essentially recuse himself from these proceedings as he's interested in becoming a Supreme Court justice, and he doesn't want any sort of look of a conflict of interest here?
I haven't heard exactly what he's going to do. I guess he would do that through a Rule 49. And then there would be a ruling by the whoever's the sitting chair, which should be John Overington, because he's the Speaker pro tem. I find that just personally, as sitting in there with a bunch of attorneys, just in the House alone, we have enough attorneys that may or may not decide that they want to go after this position, which results in a class 5 or more, and I don't think that would be appropriate. But obviously, if he didn't show up to the session, he would de facto recuse himself. So I don't know what his intentions are. And
the significance of a class of 5 or more means if you have a class of 5 or more, you cannot recuse yourself?
That's correct. Ever since I've been down here, that's what it is. There's only been one There's only been one Rule 49 allowed that I'm aware of since I've been down here, and that was Delegate Walters, who is literally one of only, I think, 2 people in his line of business in the whole state, and there was a bill coming before that affected his line of business, and since his business was only one of 2 in the whole state, they recused him from voting.
There have been some people on our show, and I've read about it in other media channels as well, that there's sort of 2 sides, 2 ways of thinking about this. Some people opposed to an impeachment proceeding are saying, let's just let the process play out. There is a process, a legal process. The other thing is Alan Lafrey is currently not on the bench. He's not serving in any kind of capacity. You've got the cost of a special impeachment trial. These are all arguments given by some who say we shouldn't be doing this. Nonetheless, you are, because the governor has called it into session. Is this shaping up as a partisan issue, as a Republican versus Democratic issue, because of the fact Alan Lafrey, in part, because of the fact he was actually elected as a Republican, and there are Republicans who don't want a Republican to go through this? Is that shaping up in any way, shape, or form to be the case?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think.
I'll speak to that. I mean, I think any time that you have a justice that is, 1, suspended for can't even practice law, and 2, he's sitting there with 22 criminal indictments against him, I don't think that's a partisan issue. I mean, he may belong to a particular party, but I think people, clearly you want to have some confidence in the court, and you can't be having a justice like that. The average person on the street sitting there looking at it like, what's going on here? And for us, too, one of the things that we're trying to push for is if he does not, Lafrey in particular, I'll refer to him, I don't know about the others, but let's just say he gets impeached and he goes on trial and he's ultimately removed from office. That has to happen before August the 14th if the voters are going to have the ability to vote for a Supreme Court justice this November. If it happens after that date, then the governor will make an appointment, and that person will get basically 2 years and several months of a free ride before they have to go on the ballot. So we're trying to push it, fast track it, so the voters will have an opportunity to vote for a new Supreme Court justice.
So it's not a partisan issue, and you're serving, as you say, Isaac, in the role really of a grand jury. There certainly seems to be enough evidence here to kind of move through this quickly to suggest that at least it needs to go to, if you will, the trial over to the Senate, and that this should not be a long, drawn-out process.
Well, it depends on how you define. It depends on how you define long, drawn out, but the history of the one impeachment that we have, at least in modern times, back in '89, it was a fairly long, drawn-out process. And back then, and it was the Democrats impeaching a Democrat back then. So if you want to compare, kind of do an analogy, that's where we're at now. We got Republicans impeaching for sure, probably one Republican and potentially one Democrat, I think is the most likely scenario. And in the case of 89, it took 10 days in the House, and we were in session at the time. The House was in session, so it wasn't as difficult to get people scheduled. You have to understand, these people that are sitting on this Judiciary Committee, we are a part-time legislature. This is not going to happen overnight. They have to get a quorum every time, and some people, if you're, for instance, and this isn't a good example because he's not on that committee, but, we've got doctors, we've got lawyers. They may have cases in front of a judge, in a court that they have to go and do outside of their legislative duties. And so this is not, and then again, it took 2 months before they scheduled the trial in 89. So I think the time frame that Isaac is speaking of is, quite frankly, plus we can't just go. First of all, the evidence that's been presented to the grand jury for the criminal charges, we're going to have a hard time getting that. They're not going to let that go easily. So all we have to go on right now is especially when you're talking about the second and third justices, especially potentially, is what's available from the auditor's report currently. And you don't just go by hearsay, what you read in the paper. And not everything that you read in the paper is always accurate.
Do you two support the governor's decision to call a special session for the impeachment of the state Supreme Court members?
I do. Yes, I do.
I do, but because, first of all, there was some question. The original idea was to have the judiciary start looking at it during interims and have the staff. The staff's been doing a ton of research about what happened in the past. They've actually interviewed people that managed the impeachment of A. James Manchin. They've talked to several members of these are former House members, and they've actually talked. I think they're talking to one other guy. I can't remember if it was one of the senators how they did it, but there were rules set up at that time, and I don't think you can just willy-nilly throw somebody out, no matter who it is, without giving them due process and respecting the process.
Let's Isaac Sponaugle. Go ahead, Isaac. I want to give you a chance to address that, too, because I want to ask you something about the cost of this, too. Senator Craig Blair told us last week it's $35,000 a day when you call a special session. Does that enter into any concerns of this being a drawn-out process?
No, because, frankly, the legislatures, even if they're not, we're going to have to go into special session and give the Judiciary Committee certain powers. They're going to have the power of subpoena. They're going to have various things. You can't do that if you don't call a special session. So You're basically going to ride this out for months. And again, the voters should have an opportunity to be able to vote for this justice rather than just having an appointment sit there for 2 years. So if you don't call a special session today, we aren't scheduled to come back here during interims till September because normally you don't do much, and I don't think there's anything scheduled for July or August, and you're going to be past that August 13th date, cutoff date, to have an opportunity to vote for them. So, I think the voters should have a right to vote for the Supreme Court justice, certainly. And so the only way you're going to do that, you're going to have to call a special session, which the governor did today, to start the process.
Any idea how long this might take?
Well, it really depends. I think it depends on how and this is important. You have to have, for the judiciary to do their work, they have to have a quorum. And there's 25 members, so you have to have at least 13 members there. So, and they're actually working on that right now with the staff and sending out sheets to the members of the judiciary on what their schedules are like. Because, like I said, if we were in regular session, it would be easy. People would already made plans. And the other thing is there's a lot of research to be done, and to say that this could be done, and first of all, the $35,000 figure to start this process is that's only if the whole legislature is here. And since the Senate will not be involved in this right now, so that's part of that money is involved. That $35,000 figure includes the Senate, which will not be here at all while we're doing this for the most part. On the House side, 75% of our members will not be here during those days that the House Judiciary is meeting. So it's a much smaller fraction of $35,000. Now, once the Judiciary makes a recommendation, and then because we're going to go in today, and the way the rules are set up, we can't go for more than 3 days without the whole body coming back unless we have resolutions from both chambers saying otherwise, which is what is going to happen today. So there's going to be at least 2 weeks 2 or 3 weeks, I think is my understanding, to let the judiciary try to do their work. And the staff members have been working pretty extensively in the last week or so and getting stuff together, the history of what took place before, looking at the rules that were set up in '89, because that's a framework for what we're going to do.
All right, Mike, let me jump in here because we're just about out of time. I want to make sure Isaac gets a word in too. Isaac, final thought?
Well, I just think it's important that we do our work. The judiciary is going to have to decide the scope, what charges you're wanting to look at in each particular justice, or if you're going to do multiple ones. But it's just, you got to have confidence in your government. And right now, having a Supreme Court justice under a federal indictment, I don't see how any reasonable person believes that you would have confidence in the judiciary right now. And it's up to the legislature to clean the mess up. So that's what we're attempting to do.
Fair point. Isaac Sponaugle, Democrat 55th, Mike Folk, Republican 63rd. Thank you both this morning. Very much appreciated.
Have a good day.
All right, you guys take care.
Thank you, sir. It's 8:31. Our news break is coming up next. A lot to talk about in the state of West Virginia. We didn't even get into the billing.
My! I would could have carried that another half hour for sure.
Easily. 8:31.
CBS News Update. Customs officials have stopped arresting adults crossing into the country with children as the administration grapples with reuniting about 2,000 immigrant families. CBS's Steve Futterman is at Texas Port Isabel Detention Center.
How long will it take? We just don't know. But inside this detention center, the efforts are taking place to reunite parents and children. Officials say they do know where everyone is. They know where the parents are. They know where the children are. Still, it may take some time to reunify everyone. In some cases, it may take months.
Republican leaders in the Senate have put off a vote on immigration reform until tomorrow. Political correspondent Ed O'Keefe.
There's a so-called compromise measure that's a negotiation between conservative and moderate Republicans that would help reunite those illegal immigrant families, address the fate of dreamers, and put up $25 billion for border wall construction across the country.
CBS News Update.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. Rockwool President Trent Ogilvie and CEO Jens Bergerson will join local elected officials and community members, as well as West Virginia Governor Jim Justice, to break ground on their newest manufacturing facility in Ranson. It'll take place today from 11:30 to 1:15 at Jefferson Orchards, Northport Avenue and Shenandoah Junction. Rockwool's the world's leading manufacturer of stone wool insulation. The company expects to generate between $4 and $5 million in spin-off gains to the Eastern Panhandle. Production's expected to start in 2020. West Virginia could end the current fiscal year with a substantial amount of unspent revenue. With less than a week to go, Justice Administration officials are saying they're looking at a nearly $30 million surplus, more than double the amount expected by lawmakers. It's largely due to higher than expected tax collections. The city of Martinsburg's 4th of July fireworks will be held next Wednesday at about 9:30. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We've got another good-looking day in the Eastern Panhandle forecast. If you liked yesterday, today is very similar. Temperatures a couple degrees cooler and just running slightly below average. We've got winds that'll develop out of the east and southeast and eventually out of the south overnight. More humidity returning to the area with clouds increasing and the nighttime low back to the middle 60s. Tomorrow, scattered showers and thundershowers popping up in the afternoon and going right on through the evening time. We'll have a warm front approaching with temperatures near 80, and then it gets muggier, partly sunny on Thursday with a high in the mid-80s. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio WRNR.
Why Apple Valley Chevrolet Toyota in Martinsburg? Because we're a name you can trust. And you can trust that you'll always find a large selection of over 400 new Chevrolets and a wide selection of new Toyotas at unbeatable prices. How unbeatable? Well, we will not be beat on any deal on any new Chevrolet or Toyota. That's right. You will not find a lower price, guaranteed. From Chevy Cruzes, Malibus, Impalas, Equinox, Suburban, Silverados, to Toyota Yaris, Corollas, Camrys, Avalons, and more. more. No one beats an Apple Valley Chevrolet Toyota deal. And remember to check your mailbox for this month's specials and great savings. Simply put, if you're in the market or will soon be in the market for a new or newer vehicle, check out all that Apple Valley Chevrolet Toyota has to offer. We're Apple Valley Chevrolet Toyota in Martinsburg, or online at applevalleychevy.com. That's applevalleychevy.com. Apple Valley Chevrolet Toyota, a name you can trust.
Hello, this is Delegate Mike Folk, candidate for West Virginia Senate District 16. I want to extend my personal congratulations to all the Little League All-Stars this summer. As a former three-sport athlete and Shepherd football player, I understand the importance of discipline, hard work, and perseverance, something our All-Stars have in common. As you continue your journey through this summer and your life, remember this quote from Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, who said, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't." Best of luck and have a great tournament.
Simply Free e-checking from City National Bank. Perfect if you want basic checking with no monthly service fees or balance requirements. Stop by any of our 7 Eastern Panhandle locations or visit us online at bankatcity.com. City National Bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hi, honey.
Where are you?
I've been in line at the post office for the last 30 minutes.
Why are you at the post office? It'll take you all day.
Where else do I go to ship my packages or drop FedEx off at?
Honey, going postal is way faster, has less lines, and friendly service.
Where's going postal?
It's right in the Common Shopping Center in Martinsburg. They'll ship your packages quickly, and you can avoid the lines.
Going postal should be your first choice for all your shipping needs. Going postal, the Commons, Martinsburg.
The WVU Medicine Spring Mills office building is now open. This new 3-story, 40,000 square foot facility is conveniently located off Interstate 81, exit 20 at the intersection of US 11 and Campus Drive. The WVU Medicine Spring Mills medical office building features many different offices and services for area residents. It's now home to urgent care, women's imaging center, lab services, and primary care pediatrics. The WVU Medicine Spring Mills office building now open to serve you.
This segment of Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave is brought to you by L.A. Roberts Jewelers in downtown Martinsburg, committed to excellence in quality, design, craftsmanship, and I would also tell you that they are also committed to excellence in customer service, because when you walk in there and you say, listen, I got to get something for somebody, but I don't know what it is, they're going to make sure you get the right gift.
Yeah, they'll work with you, and they'll work with you at any budget.
Exactly.
You can go in, and I have, and say, you know, I need to get something I want to get something for Debbie for whatever holiday that it might be, and or event, birthday. And I said, but I'm kind of a little low on money this month, and, they'll work with you. And I think that's really nice, too. You don't have to be intimidated when you go there.
Let's say good morning to our wonderful intern in charge of all of our social media this spring in summer, Siobhan Hunter. Good morning, Siobhan.
Good morning.
Siobhan is off to a wedding, so Thursday and Friday she won't be here, Dave. We're going to have to find a way to do this ourselves.
Where's the wedding, Siobhan?
It's at the Waterfront Hotel in Morgantown.
Oh, okay, cool. I've been there many times.
I've been there once.
Yeah, that's really nice. Is that a college friend that's getting married?
It's my sister.
Oh, nice.
It's a family wedding.
Very nice.
And Siobhan will be in Morgantown full-time in another year and a couple months, right?
That's scary. Don't talk about that.
And you've already spent 1 year there, right? Is it a fun place to be?
Well, she goes to Potomac State.
Yeah, I go to Potomac State.
Oh, so this will be your first year at WVU then?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
She has one more year at Potomac State, then it's off to WVU.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
And then she'll be back here as a professional with a higher salary managing our social media.
I think I'll hire her.
Cross my fingers.
I'm going to get into a bidding war with the WRNR.
You think?
Yeah. I think.
So I think as her agent, I will not permit her to work for less than $75,000 a year.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
That sounds good
That's
to
a
me.
start.
Can we get this in writing, please?
I'm holding out here. I'm holding out. Nothing less will do. So, Dave, before we get to Dr. Terrence Reidy, this is...
We got the big guy on today, huh?
Primary day among the states having primaries, border state of Maryland.
The People's Republic of Maryland, as some people say.
Now, we've heard about political parties trying to influence elections.
Right.
This is kind of interesting.
In Rob's hands right now are two political mailers that arrived at his home in the state of Maryland.
And I can tell you, it's been a while since I've gotten as much mail and as many robocalls as I've gotten in this particular
So you're experiencing what we experienced back in May.
Indeed. I'm getting it now.
Mm-hmm.
So the Democrat Party in Maryland.
That'd be the Democratic Party.
Thank you. Has, well, I think it's just the Democrat Party.
No, it's the Democratic Party. When you want
you
to
have
show
Democratic thoughts.
No, when
But
you
it's
want
not the Republicanic Party.
No,
It's just Republican
Rob,
Party.
I'm telling you, if you want to be respected by members of the Democratic Party, you will refer to them as the Democratic Party.
But they're wrong. I think it's just Democrat Party. You're a Democrat. You're not a Democratic.
I just want our listeners to know that Rob and I are having our very first disagreement of the day.
So you get the Snickers bar award for what?
I'm going to take the
Brat?
Snicker bar for Brat.
You're the Brat this morning?
No, I'm going to take basic because that's just a basic thought.
So the Dems, how's that, sent out a mailer to registered Republicans. They've addressed this one to my wife that says, only a diehard conservative like Billy Shreve would say President Obama should absolutely apologize for Obamacare. And then on the other side, it has a picture of Billy Shreve holding a deplorables for Trump next to what appears to be a Trump cardboard cutout, life-size. And it says that it's clear Billy Shreve is just too conservative for Maryland. This was sent out to Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it makes you think they want you to vote against Billy Shreve, right?
Right.
Okay. But instead, here's what we find out later in a mailer that went out from with Craig Giangrande, okay, who's running for state senate. It's a picture of Hillary Clinton, and it says the Democrats just got caught red-handed. Giangrande's a Republican, sending this to my house. And he says the Frederick News Post just exposed the Democrats playing a dirty trick on Republican voters. The Democrats were caught red-handed, sending out mailers to help elect Billy Shreve in the Republican primary for state senate. Liberal Democrat Senator Ron Young even admitted the mailers would trick voters into supporting Billy Shreve. Frederick News Post column, June 15, 2018. So essentially what the Democrats were doing was sending out an email or a mailer that says Billy Shreve is too conservative, don't vote for him, hoping that Republicans would get it and go, well, if he's too conservative, then I want him. I will vote for him. They feel that Shreve is more beatable in a general election against the Democrat candidate. So they wanted Republicans to actually look at that and go, well, if the Democrats don't want me to vote for him, then I'm voting for him.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. We saw that happen in West Virginia on a number of occasions. This last primary, we certainly saw Democratic-oriented organizations coming in and trying to influence the U.S. Senate campaign. On the Republican side, the one person that they did not want Joe Manchin to run against was Evan Jenkins, and the one person they really wanted Joe Manchin to run against was Don Blankenship. They got Pat Morrissey, and so they got and Patrick took his fair share of lumps, I'm sure, from the other side. But that was a great example, just like this is, of the other side trying to make sure that they get the opponent they want, the easier opponent that they won in the general election. This also happened 2 years ago. You remember our Congressman Alex Mooney spent money to send to Democratic voters in the 2nd Congressional District to try and get the guy nominated, and they succeeded in this, that would be easier to defeat than, I think his name was Corey Simpson, who was a young military veteran from Charleston. That was the one that they did not want to run against. So this goes on all the time, Rob. This is just part of how the game is played, which accentuates the need for voters to try and find out what's going on and to make up their mind on how to vote on almost any way other than direct mail pieces or other kinds of advertising. If all you know and the only thing you're being influenced by is political ads, then you're really in a position to make not the best choice that you want to make. And I say that as one who spent many years of my life creating ads just like the ones that you're writing or the ones that you hear on the radio or television. That's what I did for a living, so I speak with some experience here. This is what political media consultants do.
Well, I thought it was pretty fascinating. The first time that we got the mailer at our house, I thought, well, that's kind of unusual that the Democrats would be sending a mailer to us saying, don't vote for Billy Shreve. He supports Donald Trump and is too conservative for Maryland.
That's very clever.
I thought, why would they care?
Yeah, that's a very clever presentation.
And my wife said to me, why would they be sending me an email about Billy Shreve supporting Donald Trump? I don't get it. Why do the Democrats care that Billy Shreve supports Donald Trump?
Because for whatever reason they've determined they want to run against Billy Shreve.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason. The Democrats.
Yes, because he's beatable.
That's the opponent that the Democrats want to have. And in the state of Maryland, if you are one who has been out there fighting for Donald Trump in a general election, in most of the districts, that's not going to serve you well. Maryland happens to be a much more liberal state than West Virginia.
So that solved that mystery. Once all that was...
that was good. That would be like Politics 101 today that we covered. So
well, I learned that one, too. By the way, I did not vote for Billy Shreve.
Did you get all your questions answered on the discussion with Isaac Sponaugle and Mike Folk in terms of the impeachment? I mean, I'm left wondering still how long this is going to be. How long this is going to take.
Well, one question that was answered was the expense, the concern that Senator Blair had of $35,000 a day the taxpayers would be on the hook for, and if we just waited, it would appear that Justice Loffrey, who's not able to serve as a justice now anyway, would most likely resign and save the state the trouble of impeaching him. That being the case, as Delegate Folk explained, not everybody has to be in Charleston to do this. Only a select group of people until the actual day comes that you have to have everybody there in order to do the vote.
Do they all have to be there today? Because the special session,
no, they don't.
The proclamation seemed to suggest that they all needed to be there today. That they're calling that special session for June the 26th. That's the date that's on the proclamation. Is today June the 26th?
It is. But I think Mike Folk said about 75%.
They all won't show up.
Yeah.
Okay, so
like Jason, we know Delegate Barrett's not there today.
So here's the math. Senator Blair was saying it's going to. It costs $35,000 a day to have the entire legislature in session, Senate and House. Of the entire legislature, the Senate is roughly a third of the legislature. So you cut that $35,000 down by a third, right? And then you cut it down a few more because not everyone's going to be there for the session. You need a quorum, but not everyone's going to show up given the fact that it's been such short notice. So 35,000 really probably becomes what? 20,000, 22,000, something like that, if you do the math.
If it's a quarter of the people who are actually present, maybe it's 8,000, 9,000, right?
Total?
That's what Mike said. Maybe a quarter of the people would be present.
That's all that shows up, yeah.
On the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line right now is Dr. Terrence_Reidy. He is the health officer for Berkeley County. And yesterday he held a press conference in which he discussed an uptick in cases of hepatitis in the state and in Berkeley County. We say good morning to you now. Dr. Reidy, you're at Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave. I would be the Rob part. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
Dr. Reidy, what is causing this spike in the numbers of cases of hepatitis in our community?
So in our community right now, we do not know that there's an increase in the number, but I'm very worried there's going to be. In the western part of the state, there has been a dramatic increase from a usual maybe 10 to 12 cases a year throughout the state. There have been over 200 cases already reported, most of those since the end of March. Usually hepatitis A is from food, so it's contaminated food with a small amount of feces from someone who didn't wash, or from food that was imported from somewhere along the food chain it got infected. But these cases are not from food establishments or grocery stores or something like that. It's person to person. And the national data is for the last year and a half, there have been about 2,500 cases, and half of those have been identified in people who are either intravenous drug users and or homeless. So it's a very different way of spread than usual.
Why has Berkeley County not seen the increase that some of the rest of the state has?
So it's it's congregated in one area, so it's transmitted from person to person. But so we've been fortunate for a brief time, but we know that people travel around, and I don't think this is going to stay put in the counties there. And we've seen 2 cases in the last 2 weeks. Now, that could be the only 2 we see this year, which would be an average year. But I'm worried that this is the first signs of this outbreak.
How would the average person know if they had hepatitis A or C, for that matter?
So the average person may not have any clue. Children under 6 usually have no symptoms. So you can have absolutely no symptoms, or you could be mildly ill where you're saying, I don't know if I should go to work today or not. Or you could be extremely ill with fever, aches all over, vomiting, diarrhea, sometimes abdominal pain, and your eyes and your skin turning yellow in the more severe cases.
David?
It would seem to me, I'm trying to get my arms around this if I can, we've had 2 cases of hepatitis A in your county, in Berkeley County, and that's enough, if I understand correctly, for you to be concerned that it could be much worse than that in the future.
So the modeling of the risk of hepatitis C and HIV being spread rampantly through the community, mostly thinking in terms of the risk through intravenous drug use, where in a county in Kentucky a few years ago, a small county, there were almost 200 cases of HIV that were due to sharing of needles. And so there was modeling done of which counties in the U.S. are at biggest risk, and much of the western part of and southern part of West Virginia were included in the top 200 most likely counties, but Berkeley was also included. And the map of where the cases of this hepatitis A are looks just like the map in West Virginia, looks just like the map of the model where they would be expected to occur.
So this then potentially then is, as I read this, has a direct connection to the unfortunate use of heroin in this area. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, and not just heroin. Any way of if you have pills and you crush them and inject them, so it's just a way of transmitting lots of different viruses. Hepatitis A is unique in that this one we can actually prevent and never have to deal with it again, unlike things like hepatitis C and HIV that we don't have vaccines against.
Tell us about the difference between hepatitis A and hepatitis C, just so we have a clear understanding of that.
So hepatitis A is probably the first known hepatitis virus known in antiquity. It's mostly transmitted person to person. No other animals seem to be normal hosts for it. And it's usually due to inadequate sanitation, with someone who's infected shedding virus in their feces, and then some of that getting into food and then being ingested. It then goes to the liver, multiplies, and makes someone sick. Most people don't die from this, and they, over the next few months, develop immunity and never can get it again. And with the immunity, they get rid of the virus and don't pass it. But in a community, and much of the world still has it, it just keeps a low level so that people are constantly getting infected.
Isn't it, don't people get hepatitis A, for example, in regions like sub-Saharan Africa where they don't get enough micronutrients into their diet?
So I'm not sure how much is loss is inadequate nutrition. Certainly people will get sicker if they're physically worse, but there's a very high instance of it, mostly due to hygiene practices. If you don't have clean water and you don't have sewage, so the engineering of water and sewage are among the most remarkable public health advances, and this is worldwide seen. So when people travel overseas, places like that, hepatitis A is definitely something they should get beforehand.
And if you were one to contract hepatitis A, you say that the liver will then develop an immunity to it and it goes away, or is it treatable?
Yes.
Do you do something for it?
Right. So we don't. Once you become symptomatic, we do not have a treatment that makes someone better. Most people don't need any treatment. Very few people end up needing hospitalization. What's remarkable in this outbreak is that, as I read the information from the States, 70% of the cases are ending up being hospitalized. The reason for that is probably because many of these people also have liver disease. So you mentioned hepatitis C. So if they have hepatitis C, which is a virus that doesn't usually go away, it stays in there and slowly destroys the liver. If you already have some damage to your liver and then you get another whammy of hepatitis A, you can get pretty ill.
Dr. Terrence.
And that's, go ahead.
Dr. TerrenceReidy is our guest. He is the Chief Health Officer in Berkeley County on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line, discussing the press conference he held yesterday, in which he was not necessarily in Berkeley County, but paying special attention to what was going on across the state with hepatitis cases. We've had 2 cases of hepatitis in Berkeley County, you said, Doctor, and right now you say there's no reason for worry of an outbreak, but you want to be proactive. How can we be proactive in these situations?
So the biggest thing is, if you think you're sick and may have it, if you're having vomiting, aching, especially if you notice the whites of your eyes turning yellow, and that's usually best seen in sunlight rather than artificial light, you need to see a healthcare practitioner and tell them you're concerned about hepatitis. That can be tested easily with a blood test. And we can tell if someone has infection because some of the enzymes of the liver will be elevated, and then an antibody test for hepatitis A. By the time they have symptoms, they will have developed one of the early antibodies, so we can pinpoint just what's causing it. And then the other, for those who are not infected, is if you're at risk for either more likely to get infection or have problems, you should get a vaccination with hepatitis A vaccine. So the people at risk are anyone who's using or recently used or what we call recreational drugs. Go ahead and get a vaccination. It's a simple 2-shot deal. The first shot is effective within 15 days in the huge majority of people, and then later they get a booster. Homeless, you were immunizing some people who tend to work with these people, although it's not necessarily that they must have it. There's some fear. Anybody can have this vaccination. It's recommended now for children 1 year of age, just as a routine. So anybody can get it. They don't have to be at special risk. Insurances should cover this vaccination.
And I presume you can do this at the Berkeley County Health Department.
Yes, we have it, and so the insurance you should cover it. We will participate with most insurances. There are a small number of vaccines available for people who have absolutely no way of paying for it and meet one of the high-risk groups. We, as a government agency, we have to account for every penny. The other group that should be vaccinated is people who are known to have liver disease should, as part of their routine health care, get vaccinated against hepatitis A, because if they should ever contract it, whether it's through a food establishment or however, it can make them really ill. So a lot of times that doesn't get done, but if someone's known to have hepatitis C or B or alcoholic liver disease or severe fatty liver disease, they should talk with their practitioner about getting hepatitis A vaccine. It's an easy thing to do.
Dr. Reidy, thanks so much for your time this morning. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Reidy, real quick, one final question. I got about 30 seconds here. What would cause you to be concerned in terms of a number of cases in Berkeley County that there is an outbreak here?
So if we see every week or two an increasing number, so it wouldn't take much of a threshold. At the end of March in the Kanawha area, there were only 1 or 2 cases, and then week by week it increased.
I see.
Just dramatically, and that's not the pattern.
Thank you, sir.
Isolated case. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Terrence Reidy, Berkeley County Health Officer at 9 o'clock. Interesting. By the way, if you want to head down to the Berkeley County Health Department to get your shot, they are located at 122 Waverly Court, Martinsburg.
Great bunch of people, actually.
9 o'clock. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. The news is next.
CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Zoom Video Conferencing.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. Zero tolerance is on hold at the southern border.
While the president last night had some tough words in South Carolina.
The Democrats want to protect illegals coming into this country, some of whom are not good.
There is, for the moment, a major change in his zero tolerance program. Immigrant families, parents who illegally come into the country with their children, are no longer being handed over for prosecution. It's a temporary return to the so-called catch and release program, a program that has been derided by Mr. Trump. Steve Futterman, CBS News, McAllen, Texas.
The president is tweeting about Harley-Davidson's decision to move manufacturing overseas for choppers sold in the EU. The president predicts it'll be the beginning of the end for the company, which has not announced whether it'll lay off workers here. Financial contributor Melody Hobson.
They're not saying what the job issue is. Now, there's some statements that have been made that jobs will not be lost in America, but they are also saying very clearly that they feel like they have to hedge their bets in terms of production outside of the U.S. simply because of U.S. policy and not knowing how to deal with it.
Harley is trying to avoid 31% retaliatory tariffs imposed by the EU. 7 states are holding primaries and runoffs today. In Maryland, CBS's Bill Rakoff says a computer glitch is affecting tens of thousands of votes.
If you tried to change your address or party affiliation through Maryland's Motor Vehicle Administration in the past year or so, you might be one of up to 80,000 people whose info was never forwarded to the State Board of Elections. That means that those people will have to vote by a provisional ballot in today's primary, a vote that won't be counted until July 3rd.
Police near L.A. are investigating the case of a father killed while he was camping with his young children. CBS's Carter Evans from Malibu Creek State Park.
Tristan Bodette was shot about 4:45 Friday morning, sleeping in a tent with his 2 daughters, ages 2 and 4.
He was pronounced dead at the scene.
And now, sheriffs confirm there was another shooting in this area around the same time yesterday morning when a man's car was hit with a bullet.
President Trump takes on the late-night talkers.
I mean, this guy on CBS has no talent.
In South Carolina last night, he went from Stephen Colbert to Jimmy Fallon, who's bemoaned his hair-mussing segment with candidate Trump.
He apologized for humanizing me, the poor guy, because now he's going to lose all of us.
Fallon on NBC's Tonight Show.
Melania, if you're watching, I don't think your anti-bullying campaign is working.
S&P futures are up 1. This is CBS News.
Zoom Video Conferencing, featuring video and audio clarity with screen sharing. Free accounts are available at Zoom.us. That's Zoom.us. Zoom Video Conferencing.
Have you ever thought about saying goodbye to your job? Just walking into your boss and saying, I quit. And how would you like to commute to work without ever leaving your home? Well, not long ago, a 39-year-old entrepreneur from a billionaire family spent $20 million in 3 years to find the best home-based business in North America. He researched 70 different companies, and when he found the only one that had real long-term potential, he bought it. And right now, he's looking for people to help him turn this company into his next billion-dollar success story. So if you're serious about making money from home without having to leave your home, well, grab a pen. Because I'm about to give you the address of a website where you can learn all about this unique and rare opportunity. Write this down, www.goherenext.com. Now get on your computer and go to this site now. Part-time or full-time, your income is based totally on your performance. Interested? GoHereNext.com and say goodbye to your boss tomorrow. GoHereNext.com.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. The bill from a huge fire near Martinsburg could reach 7 figures. Yesterday afternoon at an auto dealership on Lawn Street off US 11, a spark flew off a grinder and ignited a gas leak. By the time crews had the blaze under control, the place had lost over 24 vehicles and a warehouse. No one was hurt. There have been 2 new cases of hepatitis A in Berkeley County in the past 2 weeks, so if you haven't yet been vaccinated, health officials say get vaccinated. Also, they stress these new reports don't make it an outbreak. A heads up for hunters in Berkeley County. Beginning this Sunday, any deer carcasses will have to stay within the county. The reason is chronic wasting disease, which was recently found in 2 road-killed deer. Morgan County is already subject to the same rule. The city of Martinsburg's 4th of July fireworks will be held next Wednesday at about 9:30 at night. The rain date's the 5th at the same time. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We've got another good-looking day in the Eastern Panhandle forecast. If you liked yesterday, today is very similar. Temperatures a couple degrees cooler and just running slightly below average. We've got winds that'll develop out of the east and southeast and eventually out of the south overnight. More humidity returning to the area with clouds increasing and the nighttime low back to the middle 60s. Tomorrow, scattered showers and thundershowers popping up in the afternoon and going right on through the evening time. We'll have a warm front approaching with temperatures near 80, and then it gets muggier, partly sunny on Thursday with a high in the mid-80s. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio WRNR.
The Honda 4th of July sales event is back, and you could get a brilliant deal on our most popular vehicles, like the Civic, Fit, and Pilot. It's a reason to celebrate across the country. From the Liberty Bell to Hollywood, Cape Cod, Atlantic City, the Grand Canyon, the Mojave Desert, the Golden Gate Bridge, and even back up to Niagara Falls. Although technically we share it with Canada. So come discover the 2018 KBB.com Best Overall Brand during the Honda 4th of July sales event. Hurry into your local Honda dealer today.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 Brand Image Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
As Asanovich goes to second with a 2 RBI double, and Martinsburg is on the board first.
This is West Virginia State Delegate and former Little League All-Star Jason Barrett. I can still remember those summer days, the fun of playing baseball, building friendships, and learning lessons that are still with me today as I serve the people of the 61st District. I'm proud to support this year's All-Stars and wish the best to each team.
61st District Delegate Jason Barrett. Trusted leadership, real solutions.
From the moment you're greeted at the front door, step back in time to a classic speakeasy-style restaurant and bar, Boyd's Steakhouse, featuring only the finest steaks, chops, and seafood. Come see why Boyd's Steakhouse is the friendliest place in town with the best food around. Open for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Boyd's Steakhouse on North Queen Street in the heart of downtown Martinsburg. Boyd's Steakhouse. How about tonight?
It's that time of year again. I'm Ron Springer, head golf professional at the Woods, and I'm excited to announce the second annual Tournament of Champions on October 5th. Want to dethrone the 2017 champs? Now's the time to enter your team into one of the many qualifying tournaments here at the Woods. Not only can you win more money for your sponsoring organization, you can also win great prizes for you and your teammates. For a list of qualifying tournaments, see ads in the Journal, Around the Panhandle, and at thewoods.com. It's on.
The Honda 4th of July sales event has brilliant deals on our most popular vehicles, like the Civic, Fit, and Pilot. It's a reason to celebrate across the country. From the Liberty Bell to Hollywood, and even back up to Niagara Falls. So come discover the 2018 KBB.com Best Overall Brand during the Honda 4th of July sales event, now at your Honda dealer.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 Brand Image Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, brought to you in this segment by the Reidy Law Office, delivering first-rate service and results for our clients. 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586, our numbers. Rob here along with Dave, our intern for the Spring and Summer Savant Hunter, and our producer, Sherry Dieter Davis. Davey.
A program where we are always civil. That's been the big debate now. I was on the elliptical today at the gym, and on CNN, they have the screen right in front of me. CNN on the left and Fox on the right. And as the both shows came on, their morning shows come on. I guess they come on at 6, and I happened to be, watching it going back and forth. The lead story on CNN was to spend about 15 minutes really going through sort of a montage of all the awful things Donald Trump had ever said that one would consider to be not civil, calling names and saying the things that he says. That was their lead. And the Fox lead, of course, was the Congresswoman from California,
Maxine
Waters, who said the awful things that she said yesterday. So now everyone wants to talk about civil discourse in America, that we need to return to being civil with each other.
What would you do if you're at a restaurant?
And we do that every morning here, really, when you think about it. I mean, we tease, we joke, we ask tough questions of politicians. We need to do that. But we're always civil, and we have members of both sides here all of the time. So regardless of what position you might take or I might take, and sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different on any given issue, that it's always a forum for civility. So I don't know why people are treating being civil to each other as sort of this new concept now.
Well, we are civil. We don't have to survive on ratings. If you have to survive on ratings, civility goes out the window because civility doesn't get ratings.
Shame on America, if that's what it takes to get ratings.
Am I wrong?
Well, no, I think you make a good point, actually. I mean, that's the kind of divided
if you
culture
watch
that we live in today.
A talking head political show where everyone's talking nicely to each other, you get bored, you tune out. You go to a show where everyone's yelling at each other. Oh, I'll watch that. Yeah.
Did not used to be that way, but of course it is now. No, I got to tell you, I think that the whole episode of the press secretary being asked to leave a restaurant because she worked for Donald Trump was about as low a thing as I could possibly believe. I just thought
I get your point, but there are lower things.
But that was no. You're being asked to leave a restaurant.
I agree.
As a paying customer,
it's not
because
right.
you work for someone that the owner doesn't like.
I know it's petty.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were asked to leave a restaurant? What would you do?
I would leave
with your family.
Sure, I would leave.
Right?
Yeah, I would leave because I'm a civil discourse kind of guy. I don't want to make a big scene. I would say, okay, I'm going to go. What would you do if you were one of the cabinet members where there's protesters outside your home carrying signs and shouting? That's what they're doing, as well. I believe Maxine Waters should be censured. I have to tell you, I thought what Chuck Schumer did on the floor of the Senate yesterday was good. He got up, he said the thing that he had to say, he said it well. I was glad that he did that. I think she should be censured. And if she becomes the face of the Democratic Party nationally, and if that's exploited by the Republicans, I wouldn't want to be a Democratic candidate for anything in a state like West Virginia right now if Maxine Waters is perceived by voters as the face of the National Democratic Party.
Moving on, I have a poster in my hand marked. This is from what year, Drew?
2016.
2016. It's a short film by Drew Broadhurst, and he is in studio with us right now. This was the last time
Maybe a
we had him
short
on the
film,
show.
but it's a big-time poster.
Yeah, it's a nice poster.
Very nice poster.
Yeah.
I mean, if the film's as good as the poster, it must have been a winner.
It was designed by Brad Hopkins.
That was from a couple of years ago. He has a new film out now called Unfinished.
Unfinished, yes.
Yeah. Drew, tell me what this film was about.
Well, Unfinished is, to me and to many others, a story of hope. It's a story about hospice care and kind of end-of-life type issues. And it's very short. It's about 5 minutes long, but it really packs a really strong emotional punch. And it shows well at film festivals to audiences and things.
You say it's about hope. I'll tell you, when I saw it, it's a very powerful 5 minutes, and it's well worth the watch. And I think we're going to try and show it for our viewers who are watching on cable this morning.
Just put the TV version up, yeah.
But more than hope, I thought it was a story that we never stop dreaming. We never stop living. We never stop believing that there's something in our past that we want to really, regardless of how old or sick we might be, we're still thinking of those. We're still thinking of ourselves the way we want to think of ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. That's really good. As we showed it, we got a lot of reactions like that. And one fun thing about filmmaking is different people see things different ways. So some will come up saying, I saw this in the film, or some saw that. And when they ask me about it, I kind of leave it open like, okay, well, that's what you saw. And
there you go.
That's kind of what I wanted.
Who is, if you're watching on cable channel 10 right now in Berkeley and in Jefferson County and later on our YouTube replay, who is the young lady on the TV screen?
The young lady on the TV screen is named Kenzie Hayhurst. And she is an actress out of central West Virginia around Craigsville area. And I found her through the now gone, but the West Virginia Film Office by putting out a request to them. And they ended up, saying that I had this short film coming up and was looking for actresses. So she responded to the ad.
Yeah, Rob and I are big supporters of the West Virginia Film Office. We did not get our way on that one.
No, it didn't go quite as we wanted it either. As an independent small filmmaker, they were very helpful, just getting me started and helping find actors and things like that, and just being a source that I could go to.
But it didn't create 1,000 jobs, and so
I guess not. Yeah. I don't know.
There's an interesting story about this actress. As you approached film day, you had the director's worst nightmare happen to you, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of worst nightmares, and this one's pretty tough to beat. So originally, the story of Unfinished was a little bit different than this. It involved an artist was going to do a hand painting of that model, who was Kenzie. And about 2 days before, he was supposed to drive up and had some kind of financial crisis where he couldn't actually make it. So again, 2 days before filming, your main actor leaves. I'd already taken so much time looking for actors, going through things, trying to get this set, that it was one of those, all right, let's just go ahead and do it. So as I got these applications in, I saw hers come in, and I don't know, I just had a feeling maybe I could switch the script and make it work with her. So I made her the lead. I wrote out the main actor and, excuse me, and went forward with the film.
At the beginning of the film, they show her, she's lying on the ground.
Yes.
You could make the case that she looks deceased.
And she may be.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so as the film comes along, she starts to awaken and move around a little bit. And tell me what's going on now.
So the next part of the film is like basically a dream sequence that she's going through. She gets up, she walks around a little bit. She's different. She notices that her body is a little different than maybe she went to sleep with it. And then she walks through a field and finds some clothes and ends up going down towards the lake. So it's like an awakening type sequence, and then her realizing that, hey, something's different here, and she wants to go check out her environment, basically.
Okay, and so what's happening in real life at this time?
Well, in real life, so in the very beginning of the film, and it's sometimes a little bit hard to hear, we made it like that on purpose, so people would watch it twice, but there's a knock right at the beginning, and that's when she opens her eyes. So what that is a knock that you're going to hear later in the film, about 3 or 4 minutes later. So imagine time passing in a snap, but it's actually in your mind taking a long time.
Okay. And later in the film, as she kind of goes through some sequences, she's got on nice clothing at this point, a dress. She's run down to the lake. I remember watching the film, and I've actually got it on in the studio here. Oh, cool. And she's dancing around a little bit, kind of like free and easy, and no cares in the world. Yeah. And then as we progress, we wind up with her back in a bed.
Yeah, she is gonna wind up back in a bed. There's a scene coming up where she there's like a canvas basically in the middle of the field, and this ties into the art theme, because originally, as I said, an artist was going to paint her like a hand type painting. So we kept the canvas, but instead of a painter, because I'd actually never met Kenzie before the day of filming, so I didn't know if she could paint or not. So we got there and had the canvas, and we had blue paint. So without giving too much away, she puts her hand on that blue paint and decides what she's going to do with the white canvas. What would you do if you were in the middle of a field and you saw a canvas sitting there with paint next to it, I'd probably mess with it a little bit. But you know, that's what she does.
And that, I'm not sure how much you want to say or not say, but I would say that the handprint shows up again later on, and there's, as I watched it, kind of, I don't know, like an eerie out-of-body experience that takes place.
Yeah, it is a little bit. So the second half of the film, it cuts to the hospice at the Panhandle, which we shot locally. We were able to secure filming with them, which was really awesome that they let us come in. At one point, the nurse actress actually, you know, it's a real hospice, so people are actually there. She walked out in the hallway, and she was going in and out with the scene, and you know, someone asked her for help, and she's like, "I'm not a real nurse. I just play one on TV." so yeah, it was fun there. But you know, you had to be respectful of the environment you were in. We were real quiet and kind of in and out type thing. So yeah, we shot that piece there. And
what is Kenzie dying of?
That's a great question. To me, it could be cancer. It could be something else.
I think it was great that you didn't say what it was. I mean, the impression that I got was sort of death by older age, natural causes. That's kind of what I got out of it. I never even stopped to think about that question.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's kind of open. I think as people watch it, especially if they've had loved ones that passed in a hospice, they can apply it to their own experience a little bit. That's what I've gotten feedback from at festivals.
Well, I think it makes you wonder too. Most of us have wondered when we're with a loved one, a parent, a grandparent, or whatever, going through that end of life process. I think we've wondered what are if they're not able to tell you.
Right.
You know, they know they're dying. They know they're at the end of life. It's something we're all going to face at some point, unless we get killed tragically in another way, where it's more instant, like in a car wreck or something. But the
co-host turns on you instantly.
Exactly right. That could happen at any time. Yeah. And but you wonder what's going through their mind. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are the? And I thought that the film really was one person's adaptation of what that might be, and I thought it was just magical.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I kind of, excuse me, with my films start from the end and work my way back.
I could see that.
Yeah,
sure. You wanted to make a point. So how do I write? This is the point I want to make. This is the feeling I want to get across. This is the outcome. This is the takeaway, right?
Right.
How do I get there? What path do I take to get there?
Yeah, and so I started. The main idea with this film was that very last scene, which I won't give away on air, but that it started there and worked its way back. So how do I get there? Okay, I have to have this piece, this piece, this piece. And then, with a short film especially, you have to make it, exactly where you're going to start, exactly where you're going to end, because you're trying to make it short and have a powerful point and not have too much extra filler things.
Is there a demand that you sense out there for watching shorter videos / films like this? I mean, here's one thing I believe, having being in this genre of business as well. There is we live in a visually cultural society. People want to watch, hear, and see more than they want to read. More and more, that is the case. Although there's still a lot of books being written.
Sure.
I'm wondering, and we saw a documentary that did quite well, I think, around the country, and is doing quite well on Netflix, that was produced by a West Virginia production team last year on the opioid heroin crisis in Huntington, West Virginia.
Yeah.
It's called Heroin. Yeah.
Heroin.
But it's only 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
And what was nice about going on and watching that, it was I'm going to go on and watch this video, because I don't have 3 hours to watch the movie. I'm going to watch this documentary.
That's right.
And I got a lot of information in 40 minutes, just as I got a lot out of watching your video for 5 minutes. I just wonder if there's an increasing demand for that kind of thing.
And that's a great question. I don't know. It's sometimes the very short videos that are just comedy, people can just watch them very, very quickly, and it's almost like they'll like those, or committing to the 2.5 hour video. The 5 minute is good as well, just because, it's 5 minutes of your time. But, sometimes people will see that and like, I don't know if I have 5 minutes right now. So I have a lot of people I'll send it to, and they won't watch it for a few days because they didn't have 5 minutes to put aside. So maybe there's a sweet spot in there. But,
you do these kinds of, they're sort of like long commercials. If you think of an emotional commercial on television lasting 30 or 60 seconds, this is like a longer version of that.
Yeah.
This is a hard thing to monetize, though. This is a hard thing to do and make, if you will, make money out of doing. Is it your intention to use this, develop a name, and try to develop longer features in the future?
It's really not right now about money or anything financial. I would save money by not doing these, for sure. For me, I like to tell stories. I get stories in my head or stories that kind of drive me. Mm-hmm. And that's really the driving force. I guess everybody has driving force, and some is money and making a living off this.
About the art, though, right?
Yeah, it really is for me. If I have a story in my head that I like enough and want to show enough, then that becomes my drive. So I just do it. I usually finance these myself. Unfinished was a $300 budget, which is ridiculously low. I was unemployed at the time, so... you got to do what you do. So it was about the story. So as I went out, I talked to Ty, Tim, Hope, Kenzie, the others, and said,
is that a local production team?
No, it's kind of pulled from all over West Virginia.
Okay.
Hope is way down in Lewisburg. Kenzie is Craigsville area, I think. We had people from Oakland, Ty's out in Reedsville.
And you shot part of that film at Deep Creek, I think, right?
Yeah, we did at my friend Brian's house right on Broadford Lake.
But what it does, though, I think it starts to credential you with Marked that you made a couple of years ago, then a film like this. It starts you start to develop a name for yourself here. And I think that's, that resume that it really, I think, could lead to something.
Yeah, I mean, I keep writing them and keep putting them out, so you never know.
The film is called Unfinished, Drew Broadhurst's latest work. It's a bit more than 5 minutes. You can find it on YouTube. What's the best way to search for it, or just put it Unfinished?
The Unfinished short film on YouTube. I actually put it on YouTube last night. It was on Vimeo, so I wanted to make it easier to find.
That's a good thought, I think. It's more accessible, the better. It's a beautiful film, and Kenzie Hayhurst is the lead actress in it, and she does a wonderful job. And I'll tell you, when I first saw this, before we end the segment, I have to tell you, I thought that the girl in the film died of a drug overdose. Wow. Because that's so prevalent right now, and it's not uncommon to find a young person dead of a drug overdose.
That's where you thought at the beginning. That's
Honestly,
where you were leading to.
That's what I thought.
Until you saw the end.
And even at the end, I wasn't 100% sure that wasn't part of the problem. So, and again, you say it's open to interpretation as to how she passes, and that's the way I interpreted the film. And there was nothing in the film that led me to believe that other than the fact that you say it's a story of hope. Mm-hmm. And when I see this film and I see a young person who dies from heroin, that obviously does not present you with hope. But the thought that her death may save others' lives, maybe that instills you with hope. That was my interpretation of it.
Yeah, maybe you just gave him another idea for another story.
Actually, that is my next story. It's going to be
something dealing with drugs?
Yeah, actually it is. The next one I'm going to work on is actually called The Hope Dealer, and it's about a heroin addict and his younger sister. And right now I'm in the process of some pre-production work. I have an actor signed up. His name's Dallas White. He's a local actor.
Will this be another 5-minute film, do you think?
This will probably be 10.
10?
A little more.
Double the budget.
You're getting into mini documentary there.
Yep.
Drew, good to see you again, man.
See, I told you start developing longer form films.
So.
It's a wonderful short film. Go to YouTube and search for the Unfinished short film. Yeah, and Kenzie Hayhurst is the lead actress. She's a wonderful actress, beautiful young lady, and I really highly recommend you searching for this on YouTube. Drew, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Delegate Paul Espinosa will join us next. This segment was brought to you by Miller Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
Easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy.
It's the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Martinsburg. Stop in now for great deals on a great line of Jeep products. Get $1,000 cash back on a 2019 Jeep Cherokee with financing at 0% for 60 months. How about a new 2019 Cherokee Latitude 4x4, only $219 a month, or a 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK for only $296 a month. Get bonus cash cash up to $6,000 off a 2018 Renegade, plus $500 trade. Stop by and test drive a Chrysler Pacifica and get free movie passes. It's all at the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty on Kelly Island Road, or online at millerschryslerjeep.com. All payments based on approved credit, taxes, tags, and processing fees extra. See dealer for details. Since 1877, Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies have proudly supported our local community. Farmers and Mechanics has the insurance products to meet your needs, including home, auto, farm, dwelling fire, business owners, and umbrella coverage. Please contact your local independent agency for a review of your insurance needs and ask for a policy from the company that knows you best. Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies, just off Edwin Miller Boulevard on Administrative Drive in Martinsburg. FMIWV.com.
L.A. Roberts is Berkeley County's oldest jeweler, where every season is new and exciting. In fact, new is old school to us, and though it's nothing new, our old traditions like exceptional service, quality, and value maintain L.A. Roberts Jewelers as the old master among so many new kids on the block. Whether you are a newcomer or part of the old guard, entrust all your fine jewelry needs to L.A. Roberts, Old World Jewelers for a new age, in historic downtown Martinsburg.
Hey fans, it's Johnny Castle from your Hagerstown Suns. It's another season of minor league baseball in the Hub City, highlighted by Antietam Brewery Tuesdays, Bark in the Park Wednesdays, the ever-popular Thirsty Thursdays, fireworks and giveaways on select Fridays and Saturdays, and of course Sunday Fun Days, where kids 12 and under can run the bases following the games. It's 70 games of fun and excitement with the Washington Nationals Class A affiliate. For tickets or more information, head to HagerstownSuns.com. The Hagerstown Suns, big league baseball in your backyard.
I said no, 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 no.
This segment of our show brought to you by the Brown Funeral Homes and Cremations, Robert Fields and Sons, a family-owned full-service funeral home proudly serving our area since 1880. 9:30. We've had a big day in Charleston at noon today. They'll get together, they'll convene in the House, and they'll start to discuss impeachment proceedings against Justice Alan Lawfrey, who's, I guess, now former Justice Alan Lawfrey. And with us right now, the Education Chair in the House of Delegates, Paul Espinosa. Good morning, Paul. Thank you for joining us on the WV Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line, sir.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Dave. Good to be with you this morning.
Paul, thank you. Did you happen to catch any of the interview with Delegates Sponaugle and Folk earlier today?
I did, and I really thought that that your discussion, you really kind of laid out, what's before us and the seriousness of the matter that is before us, and again, I thought that you really covered a lot of the key issues in this matter.
Can you add to that any thoughts that you might have? Here we have as you say, this very serious matter. I think we are all very aware that at least one of the members of the state Supreme Court, Alan Lawfrey, is probably on the hottest seat of all. But what are your thoughts about others being included in that hot seat as well? Other members of the Supreme Court, I mean.
Well, I think it's important to go where the evidence leads us, and so I certainly support the governor's proclamation that does allow us to look at, each of the justices, and again, really determine, what, if any, infractions incurred, and then, what action, if any, is appropriate. And I think, as you noted during your discussion this morning, it's not simply the possibility of disqualification of a justice. Certainly, censure, is an avenue that the governor outlined in his proclamation, and is, something that's before us. So I think at this juncture, Dave, I think it's just important to really go where the facts lead us. And as I think you discussed a little bit on your program here over the last few days, I think that we're well aware that there's several investigations that are ongoing right now. Of course, the U.S. attorney, is obviously has an active investigation and has filed charges. You have the Judicial Investigation Commission that obviously precipitated this matter, and then you have our own legislative auditor who has investigated the matter. So, again, I think wherever that evidence leads us, I think is where we'll go. And our initial, I think, plan is, as my colleagues, I believe, noted this morning, was to, basically let the Joint Judiciary Committee investigate this matter on their own volition to really determine, what evidence is available to us. Obviously, the evidence that's been amassed by our legislative auditor, that should largely be available to us, but there is some question as to how much of the U.S. Attorney's evidence is going to be available to us. Also, some question as to how much the Judicial Investigation Commission will share information. And while we initially, I think, thought that that our Joint Judiciary Committee had the authority to basically investigate this on their own, I think in looking at it very, very closely, I think the determination was made that the safest course of action would be to have an express authorization by the legislature, hence the call into special session today, where we'll expressly give the House Judiciary Committee that authority to investigate this matter. They'll have subpoena powers and all the other types of powers they need in order to properly investigate and then make recommendations as to how we go forward.
So that would be the outcome as you would see it today. Then the legislature, the House of Delegates, the lower house of the legislature, giving authority to the House Judiciary Committee to do an investigation. Is that what we're probably looking at today in terms of an outcome?
That's right, and I think in addition, and keep in mind that this is not something that happens every day and across the country or in West Virginia. I think we've only had, it's my understanding, we've only had 4 impeachments in our state history, 2 in the 1870s, 1 in 1926, and of course Treasurer Manchin's impeachment in 1989. So we're still kind of working through what the actual process is, but I would anticipate, based on my conversations with our House Judiciary Chair, John Schott, that once we meet today and pass the resolution that gives the House Judiciary the authority to move forward in investigating these impeachment, the impeachment issues, that will actually appoint or will authorize the appointment of 5 managers. And again, those managers would really be responsible for managing that investigation. So you not only could potentially have meetings of our House Judiciary Committee, from time to time as needed. They don't have to, the legislature doesn't have to be in session in order for them to meet as a whole. But you'd also have these 5 managers, which would really, lead the investigation of the House.
And impeachment, Paul, I think we could both agree, is a political process much more than it is a legal process. Is there a different standard by which you would look at, if you will, evidence in an impeachment that would be different than the kind of evidence you might look at if you were, let's say, doing this in a court of law?
Well, I'd certainly defer to my colleagues who are attorneys, but based on the information that I've been that's been shared with me, the briefings I've received, while you certainly wouldn't have necessarily the need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, I think it's my understanding that the legislatures will still likely want to make sure that there's clear and convincing evidence that a crime took place.
Do you feel you feel at this point, Paul? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask this: do you feel that there is a clear set of evidence now enough to impeach Alan Lawfrey?
I think there's enough to begin the investigation, Dave, or to really see exactly what evidence we have that's available to us as a body of impeachment. I think there's enough there to certainly warrant us moving forward today with this matter. But again, I think it's really going to depend on what the evidence is that we're able to obtain. If we're able to obtain enough from our own sources to make that clear and convincing case that Justice Lawfrey or others have committed an impeachable offense, then certainly I think there's an opportunity to move forward. if there's other evidence that we're in need of that we're not able to obtain, then obviously that might cause us to have to, perhaps wait for some of the information. But I'm certainly approaching this with an open mind, and if the House Judiciary Committee and the managers that are appointed, if they make a recommendation that we move forward, I'll certainly, adopt their recommendation.
Oh, you just cut off there for a second, but you're back now. Paul, what percentage of the legislature will be in attendance at noon today when you gather? Do you have any idea?
I think the vast majority will. I know that there are some folks that typically, keep in mind, we're in legislative interims right now, so these were scheduled, for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So most members were likely going to, either be here for meetings today or perhaps traveling home today. So I think the vast majority, I think we'll probably have 85 to 90 of our 100 members that'll be there. So the vast majority of members going to be there.
Well,
I know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's good enough. While we were looking into this within the last several months, we had a very difficult time getting members of our legislature who are attorneys, and a difficult time getting members of our community who are attorneys to openly criticize members of the Supreme Court in the state for fear that at some point in the future they would have a case before the Supreme Court and the repercussions could affect their clients. I ask you this, and you're not an attorney, but with attorneys in the legislature involved in this proceeding, is there a concern at all that there will be hesitancy to go after these justices who have committed violations for any type of fear of retribution from the other justices who remain behind?
I don't believe so. I think, just knowing my colleagues in the legislature on both sides of the aisle, I think that they will, approach this in the very serious manner that it should be. And I think they'll ultimately, try to make the best decision they can as far as whether, in fact, to impeach, to move forward with articles of impeachment of Justice Lawford and any other justice. I think the Senate would approach it in the very same serious manner. Now, are there, some concerns, of attorneys? I think that's probably fair. For example, it's my understanding that there are some attorneys that have expressed some concern about, being appointed as a manager. Perhaps while they certainly recognize they have a responsibility as either a House or a Senate member, they may not want to take an active role, as a House manager, for example. But I think with 25 members on the House Judiciary Committee to choose from, I'm confident that House Judiciary Chair John Schott or the Speaker or Speaker Pro Tem, whoever makes those appointments, we'll be able to select 5 managers that will do a thorough and efficient job.
Paul, at a personal level, member of the House of Delegates, to face something like this, how heavy is the weight on your shoulders to make the best possible decision? Because you're talking about removing an elected official, in this case, a very high elected official in the state of West Virginia from office. What goes through your mind and your heart when you're contemplating a decision like that?
Well, it is certainly something that has weighed on me, and I think it's weighed on my other colleagues as well. While impeachment is not a criminal matter, and I think we would all agree on that, our state constitution does refer to a court of impeachment, so referencing the whole nature of a court. It also refers to the impeachment process as a trial. So, it's just obviously it's a matter that I don't think any of us want to take lightly, and I know there's been some discussion. I think, frankly, the one probably disagreement, between our Republican and Democratic colleagues is that, I think you'll probably hear today some discussion by our Democratic colleagues of having a deadline, as to when to have this impeachment process wrapped up. Of course, I think Delegate Sponaugle mentioned the August 14th deadline, which after that August 14th deadline, if there were a vacancy, obviously the governor would be responsible for appointing someone. So, I think that's probably the one area where you're going to hear some disagreement. I think you'll hear Democrats really pushing for a certain deadline or a certain deadline by which we'll reconvene. But aside from that, I think it's pretty much bipartisan that we're facing this very seriously, and certainly want to give anyone that for which articles of impeachment are contemplated, certainly want to give them the opportunity for a very fair proceeding and the opportunity to obviously present evidence on their behalf if they wish.
We haven't gotten into this at all today, Paul, but yesterday I read news about almost $1 million in lease payments to a space the state hadn't used in over 2 years, also dug up by the legislative auditor. Will that become a central focus as this special session continues along, or will this all be dedicated towards the justices?
Well, this particular special session will be limited to the items that were in the call of the governor, and it is limited to the issues surrounding the Supreme Court. But, again, certainly not good news to hear, but I guess if there's any silver lining, Rob, I think some of the transparency legislation that we have enacted over recent years, one of which was providing the state auditor additional capacity to make information available to the public. You may or may not be aware from your conversations with the state auditor, his website, wvcheckbook.com, and part of the idea behind that website is to have 1.8 million people, looking at that website, or a good number of them looking at that website, really scrutinizing our state expenditures and trying to identify some of these things. I know we've had a lot of discussions as to where is the waste, fraud, and abuse that we've been talking about. Well, unfortunately, I think we're seeing a little bit more and more of it here, over the last several weeks and months.
It's being uncovered.
And,
Paul, we got to run.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity.
I get your point, but thank you so much for your time this morning. Very much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Delegate Paul Espinosa in Charleston, where he says about 80-85% of the legislators will be in Charleston today, Dave.
Yeah, there you go.
9:45, final segment coming up next.
Motion, restrained emotion. I've been diving, leaning.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%, Parsons' goal of financing for all, and Parsons' famous above market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
The WVU Medicine Spring Mills office building is now open. This new 3-story, 40,000 square foot facility is conveniently located off Interstate 81, exit 20 at the intersection of US 11 and Campus Drive. The WVU Medicine Spring Mills medical office building features many different offices and services for area residents. It's now home to urgent care, women's imaging center, lab services, and primary care pediatrics. The WVU Medicine Spring Mills office building now open to serve you.
The future doesn't wait. Why should you? Blue Ridge Community and Technical College offers over 50 degree and certificate programs in education, IT, culinary arts, engineering, and so much more. Small class sizes, flexible schedules with evening and online classes, with affordable tuition, plus financial aid is available to those who qualify. Now you can go to college. Visit us online at blueridgectc.edu. That's blueridgectc.edu. Stop waiting and enroll today.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%, Parsons' goal of financing for all, and Parsons' famous above market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
This segment of our show brought to you this morning by our friends at Bechtel Jewelers, West Virginia's largest Pandora retailer, Rudy Levin South, Inwood, next to Viva Mexico. It's been quite a morning, Davey.
It has been a little bit of a roller coaster today, but we're covering the ground and we're getting through it, and hope our listeners are enjoying the ride.
Tomorrow morning on the show, we're going to start off, we're going to go right at it with J.B. McCuskey, the West Virginia State Auditor. And again, yesterday, $1 million in lease payments to a spot the state hasn't used in over 2 years.
How
was
crazy
uncovered.
is that?
31 grand a month.
And if you're out there and you're a West Virginia taxpayer, citizen, voter, and you're saying the state Supreme Court is doing what they're doing, you've got the governor not getting the money into the hands of the people whose homes were destroyed by the flood, and then you've got the state of West Virginia paying rent on office space that's not even being used for over $1 million. How many houses down in that flood area would $1 million have purchased?
Many.
And
there's $150 million in an account.
It's crazy. And if
unspent.
the people of West Virginia are pissed off, I don't blame them right now.
It's 9:49. Let's say good morning to our next guest, young Mr. George Cornwell. George, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excellent. How are you feeling these days, buddy?
Pretty good, yeah.
I understand from Miss Angela Orsini that you're quite the athlete.
Yes, I am, yeah.
Yeah, nice. What do you specialize in? What do you do?
I play football, and I play polo, and I drive a quarter midget.
So you're pretty active.
Yeah.
Like polo.
Do you do
said
that by seasons, or is there a week where you do all three in 1 week?
No, by season.
Like by season, okay.
Polo with the horse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the chucker, right?
Yeah.
I'm in this my second chucker here.
That's awesome.
And your mom's a former news director of this radio station back in the 80s. Deborah Haynes, if that name is familiar to you. Yeah, and I remember that name. Right? It's nice to see you, Deb. Thanks for bringing him with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice to have you here. So you've got a clinic coming up that you've decided you're going to run here.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, it's called G5 Baller Academy, and it is held at FASST in Winchester, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 3-day football camp for beginner football players, ages 5 through 12.
5 through 12. How old are you, George?
I'm 13.
13 years old, okay. So why did you decide to do this clinic?
Well, me and my dad, over a year ago, me and my dad were talking about how beginner football players have, like, no clue what to expect.
Sure.
And my mom chimed in and said that you should teach them, and then it started from there.
When did you start playing football?
I started flag football when I was 5,
Mhm.
and then I started tackle when I was 7, so 8 years.
Okay, so you're a veteran of the sport at this point. I remember, George, the first time I played football, just knowing how to put shoulder pads on was an all-day task. Just trying to figure out shoulder pads and get used to the helmet and all that stuff. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So you're going to go through these kind of things with the kids, how to wear their equipment, or are you going to go into other things about football?
I'm going to go through how to wear their equipment,
Mhm.
and the basics of football, like how to catch a ball and how to tackle and all that.
How to catch the ball, how to tackle.
Mhm.
Very nice. And how to throw.
Yeah.
All right, all that other stuff. They're going to do this in Winchester. It's going to be done at the FAST training facility?
Yeah.
Okay, what does FAST stand for?
Frisby, speed, strength, and agility training.
All right, now you've brought with you 2 young people as well, and could you introduce them for us?
This is Angela Orsini and James Frisby.
James and Angela. Angela, of course, I know. Ange, good to see you
Hey,
again.
how you doing?
Good, how you been?
Good.
All right. James, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you.
You got a voice for radio, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
There'd be a lot of candidates who would want that voice to do their radio spots for them. I mean, and you'd vote for that candidate, wouldn't you?
You probably would, yeah. Yeah, tell me a bit about your facility there, James.
Yeah, FAST is we've been around for about 5.5 years. We're an athletic development program there in Winchester, Virginia. We cater to athletes from on all levels, from kids that are just trying out for sports for the first time, all the way up to your higher end Division I college athletes. And we've been around and we've been trying to make a difference in the community and the culture. And George has been a part of our program for the past few years. And when he came with this idea, it tied right into what we stand for. We're trying to make a change in the community. We want to help these kids learn to be more, having a charitable spirit, great moral fiber. And George fits all those things. And when he came with this idea at first, I was a little leery because I'm assuming, most kids want to see professional athletes, but for a young man like this to have this type of idea and give back to his community, I thought it was a great opportunity to jump on board. And, that's why we're here, trying to get more people out to help support him. For him to have a vision like this at a young age to help these young people, I think it's just a great opportunity.
Well, Ange, I know you played football before.
Yeah.
Right? I remember you were in a league, if I remember.
I was the Baltimore Charm.
Yeah, yeah. So you
What?
involved in this
I did
too?
not know
You
this.
didn't know this?
I did not know this.
Oh, yeah.
You were, what kind of league was that? I missed this whole thing.
It was the Legends Football League, formerly known as the Lingerie Football League.
Ah.
Yeah.
Still football.
Can we start that up again? Because I'd like to go.
Dave wants season tickets.
I'm there.
Hey.
You had your chance, well. Yeah, very nice. So you'll be involved in some of the instruction?
Yeah, James and I will be, and then we actually have some college guys in town right now training with us, so they'll probably be assisting with George's camp too.
Very good. James, you look like you might have played a little.
Yeah, I played a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played junior college ball at Montgomery Rockville.
Oh, that was, I remember when they had football there, yeah.
Did you see his arms? See his arms, Rob?
It's impossible not to.
I mean, have you ever had arms like that?
I used a few years ago.
Yeah, okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure.
But one thing coming up, I don't have the experience. George plays a lot of football.
He does.
I mean, at a
Now,
young
George,
age.
you look, you're a big guy. Okay, so what position do you play in football?
I play running back, receiver, tight end, defensive end.
Are you
Whatever's needed.
Hybrid.
What, you like take on a whole team by yourself or what?
That's what happens when
you
you
play
train
those
fast.
at different times, right? What's your favorite position?
Probably receiver. Yeah.
You like the ball, don't you?
Yeah.
Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So how much is the clinic, and how do you register for it?
The clinic is $30. Yeah, $30, and you can sign up at FASST.com. Yeah.
FastTraining.com.
And that's with two S's.
Two S's.
Yeah, FASST.com. And this is in where in Winchester are you?
We are off Berryville Avenue, right next to the Gold's Gym.
Berryville
I was
Avenue.
just going to ask you, say Gold's Gym. I'm sure they're not affiliated, but does this program involve weight training and putting young people on a weight training program?
Yes, we do both. So with strength comes speed. So
Can I get George and Rob to arm wrestle, maybe?
Absolutely. He looks sweet right now, but he's not so sweet on the football field. He can turn it on when he wants to.
He's a tiger, huh?
Yeah. Where do you play football?
I played for a bunch of different teams. This past fall I played in Clark County for the Clark County Steelers.
Steelers.
We like that. Rob and I like that. Steelers.
And now I'm playing for the Evergreen Hammers in Loudoun County.
The Hammers.
Yeah, and I play for a bunch of all-star teams.
So will you eventually play for a school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what
High
school will you go to?
I don't know yet what high school I'm going to go to.
Well, you live in Jefferson County, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you think you'll go to a private school or one of the high schools in Jefferson County? What's Mom saying back?
Private
Most
school.
likely private school?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been scouted and is trying out for a variety of high schools.
Okay. All right. Well, make sure I know your mom will take good care of you there. Make sure you make good, smart decisions on that stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What other kind of training do you offer at the FAST Academy?
We train athletes, all athletes. Depending on whatever sport it is, volleyball,
Boys and girls.
Boys and girls, all ages.
Oh, all ages.
We have guys in there to play ice hockey.
I've been thinking about taking that up. Why are you laughing?
It's just not your normal. It's just not your normal sport. But no, we definitely, we try to work with athletes and work on just strength development. That's what they don't get a lot of at a younger age. Just understanding how to utilize their bodies in the most efficient way, not only to maximize their talent, but just injury prevention as well. I think helps them out.
Well, James, what's a safe age to begin weight training? When I was a kid, they used to tell you about 13 or 14 is a fairly safe time.
Yeah, we just truly believe like whatever the kid can handle. You got kids 7, 8 years old probably carrying book bags that weigh 50, 60 pounds.
It's ridiculous
You got
what
kids
their
that
books
climb
weigh.
trees. You got kids that they do things. It just needs to be appropriate.
Is there a safe age to start playing tackle football in your mind? Because that's kind of controversial these days, and I know I've raised a couple boys myself, and I wasn't going to let them play too young. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
I believe is whenever they're ready. If you as a parent, you got to make that decision. If your child is ready and not scared to be out there, I think that could be at 7, 8 years old, just depending on where the athlete's at.
James, Angela, thanks to both of you guys for coming in very much. And again, if you could tell us, when is the clinic one more time, and when and where?
It's at FAST Training in Winchester, and it is
July 6th through the 8th. And you guys can register at fasttraining.com, and it's $30.
Thank you all for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Rob.
welcome. Thanks for having us.
It's 9:58.
Trying to see my sweet little thing. See my pride and joy.
You're doing okay today, but let's take a little trip 5 years into the future. You're faced with funeral expenses for your loved one. You've got paperwork and logistics and scheduling, a lot of hassle. But a little forward thinking now can save you a lot of heartache later. It's easier than you think. We're Brown Funeral Homes, family owned, in business for over 135 years. Think smart, think ahead. Brown Funeral Homes, Martinsburg, Inwood, and Charlestown, Ranson.
The Honda 4th of July sales event has brilliant deals on our most popular vehicles, like the Civic, Fit, and Pilot. It's a reason to celebrate across the country, from the Liberty Bell to Hollywood, and even back up to Niagara Falls. So come discover the 2018 KBB.com Best Overall Brand during the Honda 4th of July sales event, now at your Honda dealer.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 brand image awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
Hey, big thanks to all of our guests today and to our sponsors as well. Thank you for being a part of our program. Remember, State Auditor J.B. McCuskey will be our first guest tomorrow morning. And one of the first things we're going to ask him about is the $1 million that they discovered was spent renting a space the state hasn't used since 2015. Dave.
I want to know the answer to that question.
That's starting off on tomorrow's program. And thanks also to our intern, Savant Hunter, and to our producer, Sherry Dieter Davis.
And we begin in...
This is Talk Radio WNR Martinsburg. The Glenn Beck Show is next. We'll talk to you again in 22 short hours.
News on the hour, sponsored by TerraWorks Relief.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. Zero tolerance is on hold. Catch and release back in effect at the southern border as lawmakers try to craft